Hello students, welcome to the Academia. Today our topic is CSF, one of the most important fluid of our brain and spinal cord. The CSF in the nervous system, the fluid which is present is cerebrospinal fluid. So the full form of CSF is cerebrospinal fluid. Now, what is this? What is cerebrospinal fluid? Basically, we know about the blood which flows through our whole body. So, like this, the CSF is also flows through our nervous system. The serum-like fluid that circulates through the ventricles of the brain. So, the circulation is basically through the ventricles, and we know that in our brain, the brain is divided into the ventricles. Later on I will show you the images so where you can understand that from where the CSF is formed and circulated. So the cavity of the spinal cord also the CSF is present, and also in the subarachnoid space. So it circulates the ventricles of brain, the cavity of spinal cord, okay. Since the brain floats in CSF, the fluid acts in the effect to reduce the weight of the brain from some 1000 gram to about 50 grams, and also protect the brain from the knocks on the head. So it is very important fluid. The subarachnoid space on the outside of the brain. So this space which is present the outside of the brain is in continuity with the similar space around the spinal cord, and also with the series of interconnected cerebral ventricles within the brain. So in the diagram you can see the ventricles of the brain, can see the subarachnoid space, the third ventricle, fourth ventricle, then the dura mater, arachnoid villi, etc. In the diagram, we can see that from the lateral ventricles, CSF drains into the central third ventricle, and thence through the aqueduct in the midbrain into the fourth ventricle. So you can see in the diagram the actual image how the brain ventricles look like. From the fourth ventricle, the CSF exit into the subarachnoid space through several openings and fill the basal cisterna beneath the brain. Okay. Hence the flow of CSF is mainly up and over the whole brain surface, whilst some flows down into the spinal cord, completing the circuit back to the bloodstream. So this is the diagram of the brain where we can see the flow of the CSF. Next we move to the, so it is secreted, and how it is secreted. The mechanism of secretion I will discuss. First of all, as I have already told that it is a fluid, and it is actually a weak salt solution and having the inorganic constituents like Ca2 plus, Na plus, Cl minus, K plus, Mg2 plus. So these kind of inorganic constituents are very common in plasma also, and but the protein content is less in CSF than plasma, as well as the glucose content also. CSF is normally a clear, amazingly bright fluid, and if it is cloudy or contains a raised level of protein or traces of blood, that means it is an indication that you have infection in the brain. Okay, so now we move to the process of secretion or the mechanism of secretion. So basically the secretion is an active transport. So how the secretion occurs? The secretion is an active transport. So many of you have know about the process of active transport. That moves the fluid and solutes from the blood plasma into the ventricles, the choroid plexuses being a specialized part of the blood-brain barrier. So first of all, one thing to remind you that what is active transport. So the active transport is the movement of the molecules or ions across a cell membrane from a region of low concentration to a region of higher concentration against the concentration gradient, and this active transport requires cellular energy to achieve the movement. So these kind of transports are present in the cell membrane, and they are helping in many ways, not only in the secretion of CSF but also in different kind of secretions of molecules, nutrients. This kind of transport is helping. Okay, next in the next slide can see the process of active transport and how it occurs through the cell membrane. Here in the diagram can see the lipid layer, the lipid bilayer, in between the integral proteins are there, and how the transport occur by the help of ATP. So this the same process helping the secretion of the CSF, that is cerebrospinal fluid. So this is the basic mechanism how the CSF is secreted. So the secretion basically active transport, and Na plus K plus ATPase carbonic anhydrase takes part in this. Active transport of Na plus occurs through the epithelial cells lining of choroid plexus, and it will carry the Cl minus with it. Both ions increase the quantity of osmotically active substances in CSF, which cause immediate osmosis of water through the membrane. So this is basically how the active transport have done, and not only in case of CSF but also for the other secretions, this kind of mechanism actually work. So next I will show you the diagram, but you can easily understand that how this kind of transport actually occur, how the efflux of calcium occurs, influx of sodium occur. So we move to the diagram. So here the net transport of Na plus and Cl minus across the epithelium results in the secretion of CSF. The Cl minus efflux from the epithelium to the CSF is mediated by a co-transporter. So co-transporter means which transport simultaneously. Okay, the generation of H plus and HCO3 by carbonic anhydrase is important in the secretion of CSF. So the another point regarding the formation is that the less important transport process move small amount of glucose into CSF, K plus and HCO3 minus out of the CSF. Now the formation of CSF by the choroid plexus epithelium. So here the lipid soluble substances, like CO2 and O2 the blood-brain barrier and equilibrate between blood and CSF. Other substances are transported by carriers in the choroid plexus epithelium. So, they may be secreted from blood into the CSF or absorbed from the CSF into blood. Protein and cholesterol are excluded from the CSF because of their large molecular size. The composition of CSF is approximately the same as that of the interstitial fluid of brain but differs significantly from blood. So, CSF can be secreted by these mechanisms. So, the formation is 50% by the choroid plexus in the ventricles of brain, 40% by meningeal blood vessels and ependymal lining of ventricles, 10% by brain and spinal cord blood vessels, 80% by arachnoid villi into the venous sinuses, 20% by the cervical lymphatics and perivascular spaces. So, one by one I will show this. So, this is how it is produced. The total volume is 150 ml and rate of production is 550 ml per day. So, the total volume CSF, the total volume is 150 ml and rate of production is 550 ml per day. Okay, and this choroid plexus is responsible for 50 to 70% of the formation of CSF. Okay, so this is the by which the choroid plexus, where from the 50 to 70% CSF is formed, and some around blood vessels and along the ventricular walls. So these are the ways. So 50% by the choroid plexus, which I have already discussed. This 40% by meningeal blood vessels and the epidermal linings. 10% by the brain and spinal cord blood vessels. 50% by arachnoid villi. Okay. And 20% by the cervical lymphatics and perivascular spaces. So this is the way how the CSF is secreted, and the site of secretions are different. And as I have already shown you the diagram of the brain and the ventricles, so it is very important to understand the structure so that you can find it out which one will be the choroid plexus, the meningeal blood vessels, and where from they are coming, and what about the arachnoid villi, spinal veins. So you should have the detailed idea of the structure of the brain and the ventricles, so that the secretion and the circulation of the CSF can be easily understood. So this is about the process of secretion and the sites where from the CSF is secreted. Basic mechanism is the active transport. Hope you people can understand. We will further go to the blood-brain barrier and also the circulation of CSF in our next video. If you have any query and question, you can ask or can comment in the comment box.